Where you dey go? My brother, I wan go pay my tax. I don tire because I don discover say if I dey complain, no go dey change things. The only thing na to pay my tax. If I pay my tax, government go give us better road, better water, electricity, hospital. So as I dey so, I wan run now go Ikorobasi, go pay my tax.
From Abuja to Ikorobasi?
I dey tell you.
Calabar man, you can suffer yourself. You never hear of the FIRS e-filing system where they make tax payments easy? Abba, now you get phone, you get laptop from your house. You go just visit www.firs.gov.ng. Bam, bam, bam. You go pay your tax. Everything finished. Oh my God. You even need the exercise self. See, Bele.
E-filing. Work made easy.
This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
I'm just first of all going to give a rundown on some information to show you where we're coming from, where we are, and some of the issues that concern us. And when I say concern us, concern all of us as Nigerians. Between 2015 and 2017, and let me try and explain something first of all. We have what we call the total federation account. And the main amounts that go into that total federation account are the petroleum profit tax, company income tax, gas income, capital gains tax, stamp duty. Now this amount is what is shared between the three tiers of government. And basically, in 2015, we were able to do 89% of budget, 2016, 92%, 2017, 99.5% of budget. These figures may look impressive based on the budget, but we're going to talk about some home truths. The home truth is that in line with budget, it looks okay. But in terms of the potential that this country has, it is not okay.
Taxation is quite important to the nation for its development, and particularly our country, Nigeria, at a time like this. You know, before now, our focus was never on taxation. We had sufficient resources to meet what was our need then. Our population was small and manageable. The demand on infrastructures was not that pressing. But as our population was exploding, we realized that we needed more funds to be able to meet our development needs. Anybody around will tell you that we have huge and massive infrastructure deficit in this country. Our road network are not what they're supposed to be. Our healthcare are not what they're supposed to be. Our educational system also suffer from this deficit. And so for government to be able to fund this development project on a consistent basis, instead of relying on aids from foreign countries, we just have to focus on taxation. That is why taxation now became an issue of national importance.
For one, our national revenue should increase. So governments will be in a position to provide the infrastructure and services that you and I desire. At the same time, we will become a country where things operate normally, and I'll say normally. When you go to certain countries and you say you don't have a tax number, or you don't have a tax clearance or a tax ID, they look at you strange. And I think it's time for us, to give back, pay out of our profits and our income, because people sometimes tend to forget that if you don't make any income, you don't pay any taxes. If you don't make any profit, you don't pay any taxes. So you have the benefits of earning an income and making profits within that society. It's just morally and legally right for you to pay your taxes.
And we've seen that there's no other way that you can fund development in any country except you focus on taxation. Someone said there is a correlation between developed worlds and also the level of development of their tax system. Most developed world have highly developed tax system. And it's not also a surprise that most undeveloped world, the same thing, also have a poor tax-paying culture. And if we must live where we are now and become a developing country or a developed country, then we just must do things, shift the paradigm from focusing on exploitation of our natural resources in raw form and selling them to earn money, instead of we, focusing on the taxation of the productivity of the people within the economy.
The federal position, the federation account is divided between the federal, state, and local governments. So any month that tax revenue for the federation account is short, that means the state government, local government, including the federal government, has less money to spend. And that is the reality. And when any government has less money to spend, certainly you can't expect massive infrastructure. You can't expect healthcare. You can't expect good education. All these things cost money. And we have to realize and understand that without money, a good leader, any leader who has a vision, that vision will remain a dream.
Just realize that we have no other choice. The world will now continue to support us through aids and donations. And the natural resources we were exploiting, they were beginning to fail us as well. We are not in control of the prices of these commodities. And sometimes even the production is a big challenge to us because of insecurities and disquietness in the regions where this oil is coming from. So the only sustainable option we have in this country to fund our development is to focus on taxation. And that is why it's become an issue of urgent importance and of a national agenda in the country.
Gone are the times or the days that we'll ask, what has government done for me? We should ask, what are we doing for ourselves and what are we doing for our nation first? We should obey the law, pay our taxes, empower our governments at various levels, and then sit back and see the end result.
And I dare say also that we should also try to hold our government accountable after paying our taxes. It's important also so that we hold government accountable that those taxes paid are used judiciously for the benefits of the larger society. I think those are the things that we need to do.
You see the amount of the budget that has gone into capital under this present government, and not only gone into the budget, being expensed, it is at least 3 times more when the revenues were even higher.
The key message we want to send out to taxpayers is the fact that it's important for all of us to pay our taxes so that we will no longer continue to be dependent upon the developed world to fund our project. We'll begin to say it's important for us to pay promptly and then pay the right amount of taxes.
VAT, Value Added Tax, is a tax paid on all goods and services and remitted by the seller of the goods or provider of the service to government. 5% VAT is added to the total cost of goods and services in Nigeria, and when remitted to government is used for funding development. The VAT you pay will be used by government to develop our transport infrastructure like roads and railway lines, to continually improve our educational sector by building more schools and upgrading existing ones, to provide adequate security and a better quality of life for us all. Pay your VAT. Make your contributions to the development of Nigeria. It pays to pay your tax.
This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
VAT, the fastest growing tax in the world. The UAE decided to introduce VAT. A nation or group of nations that don't believe in tax introduced VAT. Here, we've got people charging VAT and not remitting it. So here, today, I believe that we're asking for all Nigerians who pay VAT to assist us. And we have found out that a number of businesses collect VAT and do not remit to government. So we're going back the old school way. And I'd just like to publicly display this. This is a new VAT certificate which will be given to all taxpayers. and we expect them to display it in their places of business. Because we also found out, and I'll give you actual figures, that a number of businesses were not even registered taxpayers and were collecting VAT. Now, without having a tax ID as an agent or a collector of VAT, there's no way you can even remit that VAT to government. So in short, they were collecting this money and adding it to their income or spending it.
And when we go out on enforcement, our objective for going on enforcement is to make sure that these monies are collected. While on field, and the people who we've gone to enforce are willing to make payments, we can call off the enforcement. They do an undertaking, they make the payments they have agreed to pay, together with an undertaking on how they intend to liquidate within a framework which the chairman had already approved.
Well, for one, we have gone back to the basics. We have issued a new VAT certificate, which we expect to be displayed in all businesses. We've increased the level of monitoring, and we're also going to come out with a little promotion for people who can give us at least the names of 25 businesses where VAT is collected and where they don't display the certificates or don't have a tax ID. Once you give us the 25 names, we'll check our records. If they're not registered to pay tax or they're not within our tax nets, we'll give people a little corporate item, maybe a phone charger, a biro, or something of interest. I think it's everybody's responsibility to protect their present, protect their future by protecting their VAT paid.
A number of people still find it difficult to explain or to understand why they have to pay taxes at all. And so we do that by continuous education. In our previous discussion, I'm sure we mentioned that we have a department that we call Federal Engagement and Enlightenment Tax Team, Federal Engagement and Enlightenment Tax Team. And all they do is to go out there to educate people on the need for them to pay their taxes. So we're going to do that.
The main issue I wanted to point out here is that the majority of taxpayers that are counted for this revenue have not changed. The laws have not changed. And to a great extent, the consultants to these companies equally have not changed. The collection between 2016 and 2017 showed an increase of over 700 or close to 800 billion. The increase in 2018 so far showed 1 trillion. Now, if the same consultants advised or reviewed the accounts of the majority of the same taxpayers, one would wonder why such large increases occurred. It is either that the taxpayer did not disclose fully their financials to the consultants, or the consultants were also involved in what they call tax planning. But either way, it is not to the well-being of our nation.
We believe that now when people begin to pay taxes, they also want to ensure that every other person is paying. One of the cardinal principles of taxation is equity and fairness. If I'm paying, there's no reason why you should not be paying. We should all contribute to the national development of our country. So we came up with that idea, the chairman came up with that idea, believing that when those who register for VAT displays it, when you walk into a place that do not have such a VAT certificate displayed, it's either of two things. Maybe they are just not compliant. And in most developed climes, when they realize that you are not supporting the national interest, you suffer from patronage.
Since the inception of VAT, it's not something new. There was a certificate issued prior to now. A number of businesses still have them displayed, but now we have a more colorful one that is framed, that maybe can last a bit longer and has a bit more information of the taxpayers. So anyone who walks into such a business will easily see it displayed.
And so we think that people could look at this and say, why are you not registered for VAT? So if you are registered, then you'll be proud to display the certificate. And so we just want to encourage people to challenge those who they are dealing with. We think it's a national issue, not that of the Revenue Authority alone. The citizens should also participate in this. And that's why management came up with that innovation that let us just put this thing in places where companies are registered for VAT. Because one of the reasons why we have a poor collection of VAT is not that taxpayers do not pay all of the time. A number of times taxpayers actually pay, but those who collect fail to remit.
And where you don't see displayed and they have collected VAT from you, then if they can't show you that they're a registered taxpayer, then just write down their names, their addresses, and then we'll investigate. And if truly they're not registered for payment of tax, we'll pay them a visit. And like I said, for every 25, we'll give the individual a little gift, a mark of appreciation to show that we're sharing the same vision.
And so if you walk into a shop that you think should have a VAT certificate displayed and it's not there, then we encourage you as part of your citizens' obligation, to contact the relevant tax authority, get in touch with us, and then we take that up and ensure that we bring them into the tax net. Those are the purposes that we think this is going to serve. Largely a moral suasion, enlisting the support of the citizenry to join us in ensuring that people comply with the tax law.
Okay, now let me try and explain to the public. By the Constitution, the state governments have the right to generate revenue. And the taxes generated at the state level are different from the taxes generated at the federal level. Even the local government has the right also to generate revenue to carry out its operations. So we have a situation in Nigeria whereby a state may have taxpayers who have a different tax ID than the corporate organizations who pay to federal with a different tax ID. So what we have done through the Joint Tax Board is that we have consolidated all taxpayers within Nigeria, and we're going to reissue them new unique tax cards so that the gentleman in Kano who wants to buy property in Lagos and he has to show evidence of tax payments, the officer in Lagos, in the Lagos Internal Revenue Service, will hit a button and will be able to see the tax status of the gentleman in Kano. So he won't ask him to pay additional tax. That tax he pays on his income in Kano will be sufficient for him to use anywhere in Nigeria. So we now have a consolidated tax database where all individuals and all corporate organizations reside. Once you have a tax ID from any state, or what we call an FIRS tax ID or a GTB tax ID, we have basically consolidated all into one database.
Currently, we're trying to automate the collection of VAT. We've done in some sectors successfully. There are some other sectors that we are working on, so that we're not going to be waiting to chase these vendors at the end of the month before they remit their VAT to us. We're going to liberate technology such that as they are making their sales and they are collecting their money, the portion that belongs to government also will be automatically swept into the federation account. We intend to also leverage on that as well. We're going to also achieve that by enforcing compliance like we did in some of the instances. Where we have tried to educate them, we have written to them, and they fail to comply, the law also empowers us to go on enforcement. And we think we are going to do this, even though we call it a measure of last resort. It's not something we would naturally want to do, but where taxpayers refuse to comply with the law and the masses are suffering because of their non-compliance, we are left with no option but to ensure that we wield the big sticks. So a combination of education, leveraging of technology, enforcing compliance, we think will get us to where we want to be.
We're not taking on property owners. What the tax law says is that if you're a corporate organization and you have not filed your annual returns, then we have the right of using what we call a best of judgment. And so we looked at a number of corporate organizations that have never filed any tax returns. And we are quite aware that they own properties all over Nigeria. So in trying to be fair to them, we looked at the value of the properties and said that if you have a property, for example, in FCT, valued at 100 million, that means that what has gone through their account is a minimum of 100 million. And we use that as your turnover. We subject that to a 20% profit, which is about 20 million. And we subject that profit to 30% tax, which gives you about 6.6 million. So we're not collecting property tax. We're trying to estimate what your profit will be based on your turnover. And the most logical approach will be to look at the assets you've purchased or the property that you've built. So that's exactly what we're doing. And we found out in FCT alone, there are over 2,000 properties, including bare land, where ownership is under a company name, limited liability, that have never filed any taxes, nor filed any returns, not paid any taxes. So we're doing that exercise across Nigeria. We've concluded the groundwork in Lagos. We're about to start in Kaduna, Osun, Oyo, and there will be an exercise that will be done across Nigeria.
We'll be talking with the executives of the FIRS and, of course, the stakeholders right here on Boldfaces. Let's hear from them.
The essence of this meeting is to meet with stakeholders to do with tax administration in Nigeria. This includes the organized private sector, the accounting firms, various associations, accounting associations, etc. It is to assert their fears in terms of recent enforcement activity that has been going on by Federal Inland Revenue Service.
Nigeria has a huge informal sector who contribute even more than 50% to the GDP. But most of the people playing in that space are afraid of taxation even as a subject because they don't know what to expect when they come to the FIRS. Some of them actually want to comply, but there are a lot of uncertainties on what happens when they come because of documentation issues. They don't have audited accounts. They can't support some of their transactions with valid documents because it's informal. So FIRS must have a way to effectively bring everybody into the tax net without people and reduce uncertainties.
Taxpayers have been yearning to have opportunity of having direct dialogue with the high echelon of the Federal Revenue Service. And this they have made, and the chairman has gracefully given this opportunity. I'm sure you know that it is not cheap to have a meeting here and with the number of people. So this has given the taxpayers the opportunity to air their grievances and to be able to tell the chairman and the directors specifically what they face on the field and areas of the law that they think requires amendment, and in terms of implementation, in terms of even provisions and all that. These are the things that this forum has created, and like you have seen, a lot of people have made their point, which is the fact that we actually need to have this type of forum more.
The benefit of this interactive forum is that it enables FIRS to have a feedback from the people that are most impacted by our regulatory policies.
The key takeaways are essentially one, for the tax authorities to ensure that the way they implement the tax laws is taxpayer friendly and does not come in the way of doing business, especially because Nigeria is focusing now on enabling businesses. And they also have to ensure that whenever they apply any provisions of the law, they do that with due care, with proper diligence. Nobody's account should be frozen when we are not absolutely certain that they have defaulted in paying taxes, and giving them time as provided under the law before those actions are taken.
These bodies had critical questions to ask, and we are in the position to start answering them. What it does is it helps build the accountability, helps build the awareness so everyone knows what they are responsible for and their responsibilities, and helps us in engagement and collaboration.
There is no doubt about it that level of tax compliance and collection is higher than what it used to be, but it could be better. So that's the essence. it has a great impact. And you can see the hall was full. So everybody came here to clearly discuss any issue, if at all, and then get answers to some questions.
First of all, the title had to do with discussing key issues and national revenue. Now, when we look at Nigeria as a country, we're very quick to point out that government has not provided infrastructure, government has not provided services. And when we look at what people complain about, the only way that government can do that is if you and I pay our taxes. The IMF, the United Nations, the World Bank, and other stakeholders came up with a formula based on their experience and research that if any country's tax revenue to GDP is below 15%, it's not likely that governments will be in a position to afford to provide services or infrastructure. We are all quite aware that Nigeria in the last 2 years was hovering around 6%, one of the lowest in the world. And so the national issue was, are we going to continue this way? Are we going to fold our arms and complain? Are we going to continue to allow a few carry the burden of many? And so that meeting was just to let stakeholders know where we are, what we intend to do, and how we intend to fund government at all tiers to make sure that we can develop Nigeria and leave Nigeria in a better position than we met it.
Welcome back. I hope we've been able to educate our viewers today on the benefits of paying taxes, because it pays to pay your tax. We'll be here again next week to bring more FIRS moments to you right here on Boldfaces. My name is Tricia Eseigbe Kerry. See you next week. Bye for now.